Moving on to the Indiana Hoosiers, they are ranked 75th on ESPN's FPI Power Index. Their 2022 recap: they were 4-8, 2-7 in the Big Ten. Their win over Illinois opening night was their first conference win since the COVID season. They had lost 9 straight. Some notable departures for them: they lose their quarterback Connor Bazelak to a transfer. He's on the way to, I think, Bowling Green. They also lose linebacker Dasan McCullough to Oklahoma, as well as linebacker Cam Jones to the NFL. So now what we're going to say to kick off this whole thing is that, for one, you know your team better than us, so if we missed anything, make sure you put that down in the comment section. And also, this is being recorded in late July, so this is done before. If there's anything major that changes, we'll try to get back on and update, if that changes, and if it's going to change anything, like with our predictions, anything like that. But we wanted to make that a little qualifier here. Looking at players to watch here for IU, my player to watch offensively is going to be wide receiver Cam Camper. The Hoosiers will have a new signal caller again this season. They had a new quarterback last year. They'll have another new quarterback this season, and I think whoever ends up under center, they'll likely be looking Cam Camper's way a lot of the season. Now, he did tear his ACL against Rutgers in October, so he'll be working back from that. He had 46 catches for 569 yards and 2 touchdowns. In 2022, he had 2 games with 10-plus catches and 100-plus receiving yards, including an 11-catch, 156-yard performance week 1 against Illinois. So he's by far one of the best offensive weapons they have coming back. They do have a lot of turnover on offense, which isn't great, but I think Cam Camper is going to be a bright spot to the Hoosiers offense this season.
Yeah, so for me, my player to watch is quarterback transfer Taven Jackson, who transferred from Tennessee. Taven Jackson played at Center Grove here in Indiana. There's not much else there's not much experience in the quarterback room for IU, but Taven Jackson is really talented. And I think if he can just get the reps, and get protection from the offensive line needs help. I think Taven Jackson has the potential to be a really good player and help this Indiana team kind of find its footing, because here over the last few seasons, since the COVID season, Indiana has kind of has faltered heavily. And you wonder, I'll get into that other part later. But yeah, Taven Jackson, to me, I think he really has the opportunity to be a really big name player for this team. And look, he's going to put butts in the seats at IU because of his older brother, who was IU basketball star Trace Jackson Davis. So just a little bit of connection there. But this is his team now. This is his offense. He's going to have his time to shine. And he's not going to have to play behind somebody like Joe Milton.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's been discussions, of who the quarterback which quarterback's going to win out in camp. But I think it seems it's funny because you kind of read some of the preseason articles, and a lot of the articles are like, oh yeah, there's a quarterback battle, but they also have been highlighting Taven Jackson a ton, because I think he is ultimately going to win out, or even if he doesn't, he's going to end up being the quarterback at some point this year. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do. Defensively, I'm looking at linebacker Aaron Casey. He led the team in tackles in 2022 with 85 last season. He forced 2 fumbles as well. He does have all-conference potential. He might actually be the best player on the Hoosiers roster, to be honest, just as far as all-around talent goes. And he will need to perform at a high level in a position group that lost quite a bit last year. And so he'll need to stand out quite a bit.
That's a huge one.
Yeah. So
losing Dasan McCullough.
Yeah, so they definitely needed Casey to step up and be good this year.
Yeah, I'm looking at another transfer. Obviously, welcome to the day and age of the transfer portal.
2023 college football.
I mean, how many of these players have we talked about that have been transfers? I think for me, Notre Dame. I talked about 2 guys that were on the roster last season.
But I highlighted Sam Hartman. That's a transfer.
Yeah,
Hudson Card is a transfer.
A transfer. I highlighted Marquise Wilson, a transfer on Purdue's defense. So yeah, here we go. Another transfer. I'm going with Western Michigan transfer defensive end Andre Carter. Um, that defense needs some pop, whether that's a heavy hitter or a guy that can just get some disruption within the backfield. Indiana really lacked that last year, and having a guy like Andre Carter come in who's a disruptor, I think that's going to pay dividends for their defense. Their defense is going to have some growing pains. Yes, Aaron Casey is back. Aaron Casey is going to be a really good player for this team, but the loss of Deshaun McCullough, that's going to hurt. I mean, that was a player that is a game-changing player on that defense. Obviously, when his dad left, that meant he was going to leave too. So that's the kind of the game you play when you work that kind of system. But I think Andre Carter he's going to, I mean, he came from the MAC. Guys, don't sleep on some of these better players from the MAC. These guys are hungry. They are really good. And remember, a lot of them go up in the non-conference season against better end Big Ten teams, SEC teams, Big 12 teams, ACC teams. He has the experience to play against a higher quality offensive line. So now I think, and he's going to have his time now to shine. This is going to be his defensive line. I expect big things out of him. At the same time, you may not it's same thing kind of like when I said with Jack Kaiser. I said, his stats may not pop off the stat sheet. However, with Andre Carter being out there, he's going to take some attention of, other blockers. So he's going to be double teamed significantly. And that's going to then open up opportunities for other players to step up. So you kind of hope that you see that kind of happen. And I think the potential is there. I'm really intrigued to see a player like Andre Carter and how he does within this Indiana defense. I mean, remember, Tom Allen is a defensive mind, and their defense has been okay. And I think this could be a big boost for them this year.
You talk about transfers as well. Taven Jackson, we talked about him. So a lot of transfers, talked about on the preview show tonight. Storyline for the Indiana Hoosiers is going to be just that. Their starter at quarterback this season. Like I said, it seems like even though there's a battle, that's brewing. Brendan Sorsby's been discussed, as well as Center Grove transfer Taven Jackson, who, like you said, transferred from Tennessee. Like I said, as of this podcast, no starter has officially been named. It's kind of the position we were in last year, even when we did the preview a little bit later into August. There's they had a quarterback battle there, but it was again kind of where we know who the winner is going to be. Kind of like we have the favorite, but we'll see if another player kind of rises to the occasion. But whoever it is that starts at quarterback for IU, I mean, it's going to be another new starter for that program, and we'll know right away what they have in that position, because guess what? Right out of the gates, you play Ohio State. So you're going to find out right away what you have at the quarterback position week 1.
Yeah. What I want to see more discipline. I think that's the big storyline is, can this team be consistent, be disciplined, and everything? Last year, it was so Jekyll and Hyde. And when the season started really going south, you just felt like they kind of stopped. I mean, but then at the same time, they go out and they shock Michigan State and keep Michigan State from getting that 6th win to get to a bowl. They start the season off with that upset win over Illinois, that kind of like, okay, what's going on here? It's just, when I look at this team, can they keep their composure when the going gets tough? Because this team is not going to be a world beater. They're going to take their L's. They're going to take their lumps this year. But can they play that spoiler team like they did against Michigan State and, sneak up on somebody? If they're able to keep their composure this season, sneak up on some people and show that growth, then that bodes well for the future. If not, if the wheels fall off again, it could be Indiana's looking for a new head coach. So the storyline, like I said, for me is just how this team can ride through the season. And if it's shown maturity and it's showing fight, that's kind of the storyline for me that I'm looking for with this team.
Looking at the schedule for the Hoosiers, like I said, they do start the season against Ohio State week 1. Then they will play Indiana State, Louisville at home, Akron, and then they will finish September at Maryland. Then in October, they're at Michigan. They're at home against Rutgers. They're at Penn State. And then in November, they have Wisconsin at home, at Illinois, then at home against Michigan State before finishing out the bucket game at Ross-Ade Stadium against Purdue. So, over under the record prediction, according to DraftKings, their over under is at 3.5 wins. I'm taking the under here. They went 2-7 in the Big Ten with a seasoned quarterback under center last season. I mean, say what you want about Connor Bazelak. I know he wasn't like a top tier prospect. He was at Missouri for a little bit, and now he's in the MAC. But they still had. I mean, all told, they had a quarterback that had NCAA reps, like consistent, reps, last season and still struggled, during this course of the season. And I just see them struggling, no matter who takes the reins at quarterback for them this year. I think they'll be 2-2, after the first 4 games. They'll beat Indiana State. They'll beat Akron. I think they beat Rutgers at home. And then you kind of have to talk yourself into the other teams that they played well last year from the Big Ten. I mean, they hung in against Maryland. Of course, that was at home. They beat Illinois, like you said, and Michigan State. Now they do get Michigan State at home. They have they'll have I think Illinois. No, Illinois is I think on the road, but they'll have Michigan State at home. So they could still beat them potentially. So, I mean, there's an argument to be made that they could get to 4 or 5 wins, and that would, I think, be great for them if they could do that. I'm just not to that point yet with them. I'd have to see more now. I'll have to see, how whoever the quarterback is, how would they do against Ohio State, and then that's kind of how. I mean, I know they'll get beat, but just like, what do they look like in that defeat? That'll be kind of what is the test to see how the rest of the year will go. Because, like I said, I think they can be 2-2. They'll have a decent start. But once the Big Ten season starts, I just see more struggles for this team. I just don't have a ton of faith that they're in for anything more than a 3 or 4 win season.
Yeah, when I look at this schedule, I mean, I think Akron's a win. Indiana State could be interesting. I mean, Indiana State struggled against Purdue last year, and Purdue's high-octane offense. But Indiana State also did hang with eventual FCS runner-up North Dakota State pretty well. And IU just has a history of taking a loss that you're just like, how did you do that? I mean, for instance, while we were at Ball State, our Cardinals had the Hoosiers number.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what was the record? Like 3-1 against
Something
them in
like
that?
Yeah. During that span.
Over like a span of 5 years. So, I mean, but I know I'm still going to say that's a W for them. I think this Indiana team, their floor is 2 wins, but their ceiling is 4. Some of these games are toss-ups. Rutgers, I mean, they lost to Rutgers last year. You shouldn't be losing to Rutgers. Rutgers is in the same kind of situation you are in. So that one's a toss-up. At Illinois, Illinois is going to be a different team this year. I don't know what to expect out of. I mean, that defense was really good, and IU beat them last year. So I don't know. So I'm going to say overall, I think ultimately they go 3-9.
Yep, I think that's a good ballpark. That's kind of where I have them as well. So we'll see if they can improve on that and what kind of season the Hoosiers will have.